Maybe it's just me, but sometimes I wake up and I go around my game shelf and I look at it and I feel like something is missing. And I wonder to myself, what is missing? I got all these cool games that I love to play, but there's something missing from my gaming shelf. What is it? And then it hits me one day. Oh yeah, I know what should be right here. Hey everyone, it's Steve from RPGfanatic.com. That was my intro to this quick review of my buddy Rob Strangman's Memoirs of a Virtual Caveman. Rob, forgive me if I pronounced your last name wrong there. This was released about 3 weeks ago, July 15, 2014, and I finished reading the book, and I have to say that overall my recommendation is very simple, and I can sum it up in 3 words. Go buy it. So, for a long time, I always wondered why no one had penned sort of a gaming memoir. And actually, you know what? There are a couple out there. But none of them are quite like Rob's, and I'll explain why in this video. It's because this book is, the first 200 pages more or less, contains Rob's gaming related stories growing up and into current day at the very end. And then you also have special guest contributor stories over here that are written from over 15 different gamers who grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s playing games. And actually, you know what? Rob was very kind enough to include 5 of my own stories, so I was very humbled and honored when he asked me if I would like to contribute a story to the book. There's the foreword from Flack of Digital Press. And it's just a 472 pages. It's got so many nostalgic stories, and the great thing about this book is, even though they're Rob's stories or they're my stories or they're Flack stories, they're really stories of our lives. For those of us who grew up playing retro games, these stories just resonate with me in a way that, even though I wasn't Rob and I didn't grow up knowing Rob, it felt like he might as well have been my best friend growing up, because the stories puts you in the shoes of the 80s and the 90s, when we consider it to be the golden age of gaming. So if you love retro gaming stories, if you love reading it on internet message boards, if you always wondered why no one's ever turned it into a book form, here it is. So many different perspectives, and it has so many good stories. The writing is down to earth. It's very easy to read. It's kind of a page turner. I found myself reading through the book's 400 pages in about 5 days actually. So I went through it pretty quick. There's Rob's story. There's Rob's Splatterhouse 2010 contributions. There's a pretty cool story. You got to check that out. Also, I want to show you guys, of course I have to show you my 5 stories that made it into print, but hang on a second here. Just flipping through the stories, and great graphic design right there. I love that. That's awesome. Here's just a quick look at 5 of the stories that were included in Rob's book of mine. My Super Nintendo Genesis. When I first got this book and I read through the stories, and when I came to my stories, I kid you not, I literally got goosebumps, because it always been a childhood dream of mine growing up that I would one day be a writer, or at least have my work published in a real physical print book. So when I saw this in Rob's book for the first time, holding it in my hands, I was just so happy, and I got goosebumps, like I said. Thanks, Rob, for the 100th time for making a long buried childhood dream come true. Oh, and there's a picture of my childhood town in the book. It's crazy, man. like I said, I got chills. Ooh, heavy book. I got chills when I was reading this and saw my words and my stories in this book. But yeah, there's some bias naturally, but honestly, speaking as objectively as I can, this really is a high quality retro gaming memoir, and there's not a lot of them out there. And this one really fills a void in that sort of genre, I feel. Here's my last story, Super NES Resurrection. And it's, just thank you, Rob, for making this book, because I had such a blast reading his stories and everyone else's stories, even though they're not my stories per se, like I said earlier, it really transports you back to the golden age of gaming, you know, a special time in our lives where things were simple, where bills and clogged 6-lane highways and junk emails didn't yet exist, you know. It took us back to a special time that we'll never forget.